Hello and welcome to Haunted Homes, the show in which we meet ordinary people who've had extraordinary encounters. Today we're in Lancashire to meet Chris Campbell and Stephen Hall, who've invited us to visit their haunted home. So, Chris and Stephen, thank you for inviting us into your haunted home. Tell me a little bit about the building's history.
The building was originally built in 1690 as a school,
Right.
and the money was set up by the Dandy family.
Was that a local family in the area?
It was at the time, yes. And the idea was that the workers of Curedon Estate, their children would be educated here. And in 1690 there was 4 children attended this school. As time went on, the population of Lostock and the Curedon Estate increased, and more children were educated here, to the point where another property had to be built next door for the headmaster to live in.
That's the building that exists today, the other adjoining
That's
house.
right, yeah.
And that's where it gets its name, the old schoolhouse.
The old schoolhouse, yeah.
Okay. We know that the house is haunted, that's why we're here. What are the main ghost experiences that you've had occurring? What about the story that we've been told by yourselves about the medal? Because that's a particularly key story, I think, to the hauntings here. How did that come about?
Well, that was the most frightening thing that ever happened in this house.
So far?
Yeah, so far. That really was, you know, quite frightening what happened.
Where was it found?
It was actually found in the paddock. My cousin was over Kieran from Ireland, and he was picking some bricks for us because we were re-turfing that paddock.
Right.
And he just happened upon this medal.
So he was digging up
Yeah.
the ground, found a medal. What did he do with it?
Well, he showed it to Stephen, and then he brought it in, didn't he? And I think he put it upstairs in our bedroom.
What did it actually look like? Was it of any sort of, did you realise what the medal was for?
It looked like a George Cross, but it wasn't. It was very similar. It was dated 18 something. I couldn't quite make it out, but it was pre-George Cross time.
Okay. But that began the hauntings of the naval officer, I believe. Tell us how that came about.
Brad and Ethel lived in the house before us. Ethel, every single night, used to see a sea captain, a naval officer, and she used to actually say goodnight to him.
A ghost naval officer, not a real person, obviously. And did that seem to bother her? You say that as if she was quite used to it.
No, it didn't. She said it, you know, she saw him every single night and it never bothered her.
So when you've actually had the experience yourself of the naval officer, I believe it happened to you, Christian, upstairs.
It did.
How did that come about? Was it daytime, nighttime?
It was daytime. It was a really sunny day, sun shining, you know, really nice day. It frightened me though. I was frightened by it. And I'd taken some socks out of the dryer. I was running up the stairs to put them in my room, in the sock drawer. And as I knelt down, I saw from the corner of my eye a figure. And I knew instinctively who it was.
Straight away?
Straight away.
How did you feel? Were you frightened?
I was absolutely, every hair on my body stood on end. And I didn't dare turn round.
So you didn't actually look at the
No,
ghost?
I just stayed where I was, and I just said out loud, Peter, I know it's you, you're frightening me, please go away.
And it went?
And yeah, he did, and I just shut down the
You've given it the name Peter. Where does that information come from?
It comes from Ethel and Brad, because I knew them. I was a child in the house next door, and I knew them, and I knew that Ethel actually used to see him every night. So I knew the person.
And she'd given him the name of Peter.
Oh yeah, he was
she?
called Peter. Yeah, she named him Peter.
Like a nickname?
Like a nickname.
Okay. We're talking about Ethel and Brad, who used to live in the house and own the house. But I believe there have been some manifestations which are believed to be their actual ghosts now. Tell us the story of your friend the psychic.
Well, my friend came over one night and she went upstairs, and she's a psychic, and she came downstairs and she said, who's a lady with very posh voice and grey hair and quite small and slim, and she just described Ethel to a T, which is very unusual because she didn't have sort of a Lancashire dialect. She was a bit schoolmistressy. Right. You know, she was a career lady.
So where had the psychic seen her?
She'd gone up to use the toilet, and as she was washing her hands, she looked in the bathroom mirror, and as she looked in the bathroom mirror, Ethel appeared.
Appeared over her shoulder?
Yeah.
And she wasn't frightened because she was a psychic?
You know, it's the first time I thought, well, Ethel's with us.
Mm.
You know.
It seems from, as you're discussing the ghosts, that you have an affinity with them, that they're not sort of threatening to you, almost quite friendly in a way.
They can be friendly, and I am not really frightened that much when there's people around, but I am frightened when I'm on my own. I've had a couple of instances when I've been on my own in the house, and it has frightened me.
What's happened to you when you've been on it?
Stephen used to work away a lot, and I'd be led in bed, and the front security light would go on, then the side one, the latch gate would go, just like somebody was walking through, and I'd wait, and sometimes I used to think it was him coming home, because he did used to come home at daft times, and then there'd be nothing.
And we're quite a long way from any other houses except for next door.
Yeah.
And there's a long road, so of course it wouldn't be somebody just walking around,
No.
walking their dog, for example.
No.
Okay. What about the interesting story when you were fixing the roof, Stephen? What happened there?
Well, I had to go onto the roof, and I walked along the ridge tiles at the top, and I got about 6 foot from the chimney pot, and my feet were literally swept from under me.
Sort of knocked out from underneath
Yeah,
you?
I didn't slip, they were literally picked up, and I came crashing down onto the ridge.
It wasn't just because you were
No,
a bit
certainly
unsteady
not.
because
No,
of the ridge?
I just felt this sweeping feeling from under my feet, and I went down.
So it's almost like perhaps the ghost there is not being quite so friendly towards you.
That's right.
Which
yeah.
one of the ghosts do you think that was?
I think possibly the naval officer.
Again,
Mm.
Peter again.
I think it
You've had another experience though that was a little bit unsettling in a bedroom upstairs, and it was a ghostly one, which I believe was having your wrists affected
Well,
and your body.
I was sleeping with, I can remember my hand was on the pillow, and all of a sudden there was this gripping feeling on my wrist, and I couldn't move my wrist anywhere, and I was consciously wide awake then, and I pulled, and eventually this feeling went.
How long did that last?
That probably lasted 7-8 seconds.
Were you asleep? Had you just woken up from sleep?
I
or
was
going
I
to
was
sleep?
woken up by this
By it.
gripping feeling on my wrist.
Okay. But you can't explain any.
No,
It's not,
can't
not sort of a
explain.
dream experience.
No,
It was
no,
that you
because
were
I
actually
was-
awake.
I was wide awake then.
And how did that make you feel? Did that bother you at all?
It did, but again, you see, I didn't feel threatened in any way.
You felt threatened though when you were in the back bedroom.
That was another occasion.
What
Yeah.
happened there?
It was an occasion when I slept in the back bedroom, and I was awoken in the middle of the night by this terrific feeling of pressure in the midst of the bed.
Right. Like
And
a
I just
weight.
couldn't, yes, I tried to lift myself up to side or forward, and couldn't do. And eventually I did manage to push and roll myself over to one side.
Do you think that was the same thing that has affected your wrists and held your
There's
wrists down?
something there, yes. I mean, that night I didn't stay in that room.
Many times Stephen puts the light on because he's experienced something, and he'll put the light on in the middle of the night, and,
Yeah.
you have to, and I say, turn the light off, and he'll say no. And I know
Why
why,
should you leave it
because
on?
he's frightened.
Could be another reason he wants the lights on.
Yeah.
Okay, the dog, I believe, has had a few experiences. You've got several dogs, as we know, outside, but you have a dog that was thrown across a room by an unseen force. Tell us about that.
The dog was in our bedroom, she sleeps in our bedroom, and in the middle of the night she actually woke us up barking at the window, and I thought we were being broken into.
Right.
No security lights came on. I had a look round, I brought the dog down, we went outside, settled her down again, back into bed, and everything was okay. About an hour later, such a commotion on the left-hand side of our bed, and she literally took off and landed on the right-hand side.
She wasn't just jumping off.
No,
Right.
she was literally lifted. Such a commotion there when she landed, and she came back out the window, which I thought again it was somebody, you know,
Throwing her around.
something going on. We just didn't know what it was. Anyway, I settled her down again. It took some time, but the next morning I went off to pick my daughter up, and I was talking to my ex-wife and telling her what had happened. You see, I couldn't understand. I was getting concerned about this now, and she has a friend who's psychic and a medium as well that she's friendly with. And that evening, when I went back to drop my daughter off, she said, "Can I have a word with you for a minute?" She said, "Have you brought something into the house?" I said, "No, well, not that I know of, no." She said, "Are you sure you've not brought something in?" I said, "No, I've not brought anything in from outside." She said, "Well, I'll tell you, I've been told today that you have brought something in." And immediately it clicked by the window on the television was the medal.
What, the medal that was found
The medal
outside?
that was found outside.
Right. They had no knowledge of that,
I
obviously.
knew nothing about that.
And that had come from a spiritualist.
Yeah. And I could not recollect bringing anything in. until that split second.
What was the advice that they gave you in order to settle the split?
Well, obviously I wanted to try and settle this because you know, I didn't want to live with this all the time.
Well, we couldn't sleep. So we couldn't sleep at night.
It was having quite an effect on your life, really, in that stage. What did the spiritualist advise you to do?
Well, the advice was that everybody that was in the property that night was to go out with ourselves and actually bury the medal in the same spot that it was found.
To replace it from where it came from?
Which we did. We all trooped out and we dug a hole.
So a mini ritual.
We buried it.
Did you feel stupid?
Relieved.
I think that's the right word, relieved. Yeah.
Did it seem to have a calming effect?
It did.
It did?
Yes, it did.
So it stopped all manifestations?
That particular type of incident stopped.
Straight away?
Yeah.
But other things continued, we know that. Tell us the story about the TV going on of its own accord, Chris.
Well, I was in the kitchen and I was on the phone to my friend, and we have a television that's not by remote or anything, and it just came on. So that's unusual for this room, but it's the first time it had ever done it. But in the lounge, it's a regular occurrence.
Are there any particular programmes that it does or doesn't like?
It doesn't like Sex and the City, definitely. Doesn't like that at all.
You have got some pieces of stone which have particular relevance, I believe, in the grounds of the home. What are they?
Well, those are some broken gravestones that were
Why were they brought here?
Well, it was from a local Methodist church.
Right.
And what they were doing was making the car park larger. And they took up quite a lot of old broken gravestones, very, very old. And I needed some stones for working around the house. And promptly a lorry load was brought and dropped off for me.
So you knew they were gravestones? Did you not think you were asking for trouble?
Not at the time, no. No.
But in hindsight, perhaps.
So, yeah.
Do your friends actually come here still with all these ghosts?
We don't get that many visitors.
No, they do.
They certainly don't stop overnight.
Only our sort of visitors.
Yeah.
But we actually, Gwen and John have never looked after the dogs for a long time, have they?
No.
They
Okay.
used to come all the time.
Well, thank you very much for inviting us to your haunted home. We're going to take an end to part 1 now, and in part 2, we'll bring in our resident psychic medium, Marion Goodfellow, and see if she can finally lay any of these ghosts to rest. Welcome back to Haunted Homes. Now it's time to take our resident psychic medium, Marion Goodfellow, into tonight's haunted home, see if she can tune in to the spirits and the spectres. So Maz, how are you feeling?
Quite apprehensive, Jason.
You've no reason to be that kind. It's just there, and it's a really easy one for you tonight.
But I don't know what you've got in store for me, do I? No, seriously, Jason. I hope to bring a bit of peace and tranquility and love into this wonderful home.
I'm sure you will. Okay, you ready to go into the lounge then?
Certainly am.
Adequately tuned in?
I certainly am.
Let's do it.
Okay. Chris and Steve, thank you so much for inviting me to your lovely home. What do you hope to achieve by my visit here?
Well, we hope to have some help from you with our concerns over what's happened in the past and what the future will bring for us.
It's been going on some time, hasn't it? And
it has,
it's bothered
yes.
your daughter particularly, hasn't it?
Yes.
What's happened to her?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'd like to know which, you know, the names to the spirits and who they are. But also my daughter, Zoe, she was really, one night she was really, really frightened. She was so frightened that she actually went downstairs and took a knife out of the kitchen. You know, it was a spirit, but she thought there was literally somebody in the house.
Well, I can understand her being, you know, worried. You live in quite an isolated environment. But I'm a Christian spiritualist. I'm also a medium. I can see, feel and hear and sense spirit, hopefully we'll be able to find out what's going on, find out why they're here, and hopefully send them on to pastures new. At the end of this, with your kind permission, I'd like to put down a blessing on the house and leave you a little gifting.
But not a ghost, don't worry.
Something that perhaps enhance your home with a little bit of, you know, love and a more rosy environment.